A local plugin is a plugin that is not published to the npm package registry and instead lives on the local file system. Gatsby.js allows you to resolve local plugins in two ways. The first is by convention, where you place the plugin in the plugins folder in the root of your site. The second way allows you to place the plugin folder anywhere on the file system. Most often, you will use require.resolve to resolve the plugin's absolute path relative to your site directory. Let's jump into a demo to make our first plugin. In Visual Studio Code, I have our starter loaded up. To create our plugin, let's start by creating a plugins folder at the root here and then making a new meta plugin that will expose metadata about the deployed website. Gatsby.js requires a couple files for a plugin to be present. The first is a package.json file. In it, there are only a few fields we'll need to add, such as the name, version, and a main field. I've also added a private field to indicate that this package shouldn't be published by npm, and because of that, I'm using a development version. It doesn't really matter what version you actually use. The main field should point to an index.js file, but this file won't actually have any contents. Gatsby recommends simply adding a comment that says no op. The reason this can be important is for compatibility with bundling and other tooling that expects to see an index file in packages. For a local plugin, it is optional, but it's a good habit to get into. The name field should match the name of the folder, and it's worth noting a plugin name must be unique. Finally, let's create our Gatsby Node.js file. For now, we'll leave it blank as we'll fill in the contents in later clips. In order to load this plugin, I'll open the Gatsby config.js file, and we'll add meta-plugin to the end of the plugins array. That's all we need to do to create our plugin. Now remember, since we're using the convention of the plugins folder here, Gatsby will find our plugin in that folder by its name. If we wanted to change the location of our meta plugin, it's also straightforward. For example, I'll go ahead and move this plugins folder to be under the source folder. Perhaps I'd rather store all code under source, which is pretty reasonable. But to ensure Gatsby can find our plugin, we have to change this plugin entry from a simple string to this kind of object. The string is a convenient shortcut for us to reference plugins by name, but when we need to pass options or specify a different resolve path, we have to use this object notation. The resolve property will use the require.resolve API, which takes a relative path and turns it into an absolute path to the plugin's index.js file. Those are the two ways to reference a local plugin.